start, I'll just correct something. Well, example I was bringing up in the last video I made. No context as usual. I brought up in relation to what I was talking about in that video, stuff relating to the YouTuber Big Joel / Little Joel and Jordan Peterson, Canadian psychologist. When I was discussing a certain thing pertaining to them, I was wrong about what Joel was talking about in something that I was bringing up as an example. I was wrong that it related to Jordan Peterson. It related to Londa Baton, who runs the YouTube channel The School of Life. No context, just wanted to correct that. Also, I'll just correct one specific thing I said in my second Too Much Talking Twink video a year ago. Well, I know I brought up in the last video how I retract a majority of examples I guess I brought up. And I retract the stuff I was saying about the examples that I brought up in the video for the most part, but one in particular I'll highlight. I mentioned at a point in relation to something where people are more psychologically developed once they get into late teens, early 20s, around there. No, they're not. That was a completely idiotic point that I brought up. I know I said I still believe, obviously, people can develop psychological disorders, but just overall, that's what I was talking about. No, that's complete bullshit. I'll also just two more things that you can well, one of them is a goal of mine that I guess overall forgot to mention. The other one is just let's hope the wind doesn't blow on my tripod again. Of course, right on cue. Base of the pegs into the snow, let's hope you actually stay. From here on out, I'm going to be trying to, has been going completely well, or working completely well, but I'm going to still attempt to follow a more pescatarian diet. What my morals were in relation to not killing animals unless absolutely had to for food. I'm just going to try and follow more fish, vegetable, egg, dairy product, and any dairy products, like cheese, things of the sort, yogurt, and fish, and bread. As well as, I've decided for the rest of my travels, in terms of businesses I apply to for employment. No more mega corporations. None. Well, what were my communistic ideals previously? Well, not comfortable with it anymore at all. Theories that I'm crafting have helped further that decision. But, yeah, no more. I don't care if I end up flat broke, moneyless. I don't care if I'm starving on the streets from not being able to purchase food or dying of thirst because legally in Canada, businesses are obligated legally to give anyone who is asking for a water fill up in their bottles for free. But regardless, I don't think it should be a law, as I think that's too much policing. But anyway, I don't care. I've grown, I've always been how my leftist ideologies have been. I've never been comfortable shopping, giving my finances to mega corporations or moderate corporations for the most part. I liked that it potentially gave the shrivelous bit of income to the slave labor workers, the employees, up in some way, hopefully, but never have been comfortable with it. So that stops, me working at them, me applying to mega monopolized and aggressively expansionist corporations. That stops now. In terms of purchasing items from extremely large corporations or moderate corporations, if I have no other alternative, I'll do that. Obviously, there are things that I unfortunately will need to survive, as far as I can tell, that they may have, even if it's not the best product. Many are very cheaply made with forced labor and more slave labor. Or in terms of food, heavily artificially processed, so not the best for you. But regardless, if I have no other choice, seemingly, I will. But in terms of working for them, not anymore. I've had enough. I'm only going to be applying to rest of my time here in Ottawa, the rest of my journey, to small businesses, smaller chains or franchises that either have just one singular family owned or just one. It's not run by a particular family, just singularly owned business, store. Or if they have like 2 or 3, 4 chains elsewhere. Now, if said singular business has a monopoly, you're going to find out they have a monopoly on specific industry within a certain local area, a certain radius of where they're located. Well, I don't know. I'll see what comes of that. I'll try not to. If I can help it. I'll see. I will try to also, for what I can, only purchase from, in relation to me, if I have to, buying from mega corporations or moderate corporations. I will try to purchase from small businesses, but again, expenses, I don't know, but I'll try. If, though, if I'm very desperate in terms of needing more finance, more income, then I will go towards moderate corporations as a last resort. A branch of a moderate corporation. Last resort. But absolutely undoubtedly at this point, no more mega corporations. Not at all. Now, I've been fortunate, whereas my entire time of working throughout my young life, I've only actually worked for one mega corporation. That was whilst I was living in Toronto. Only one. And I've worked for now 2 moderate corporations. One was for volunteer hours that were required for graduating high school, but well, I dropped out of high school, so that was pointless. But yeah, anyway, point of this video. Just, I guess, bit of a message I want to send out. The longer I live, the more of an anarchist I seem to be becoming. In hindsight, not terribly surprising, considering before I identified as a libertarian. I've talked about in videos before the heavy similarities in governmental ideology between anarchism and libertarianism. Now, why do I exactly say that? I knew this for many years before, but it has never been more that's the right word. Aggressively reiterated to me then since I began this trek to Iqaluit. And if I reach Iqaluit, hopefully the world, the rest of it. 50 separate countries, not still counted. Wait. It has never been more apparent to me until now just how much in the subtlest of ways these political, social, and cultural systems that for much of human history we've set up, how much in the littlest of possible ways they fail. Like, excruciatingly fail. Now, before anyone asks, out of concern, no, nothing, I wouldn't say there's nothing, oh, well, don't know if this had something to do with it, but could have. It's been all over the news lately. Actually, yeah, a bit of another thing I should address here. A bit of an elephant in the room that I should make note of. Many of you in Canada, or I guess internationally, other parts of the world, have been watching or keeping up with Canadian news. There was a major explosion here in the Orleans district of Ottawa, where I've been primarily staying for my time here. Now, don't worry, I personally had nothing to do with it. But sadly, tragically, there was a gas leak within a house down in a neighborhood that's in the southern half of Orleans. It's known as Avalon. And there was doorbell camera footage from across the street of it. The house completely just went up, exploded. I believe only one person was in the house when it was set off, and that last I heard, I believe they were in critical condition, but they're alive. I hope, I don't know them, no affiliation with them, I hope they're able to recover from it well enough. And anyone else that was affected by it. And of course, failure of the systems. Of course, the major Canadian news programs, more specifically, I would say CTV, of course, finds a way to exploit it and sensationalize it for their own profit. Just as they're doing with what's currently happened over in Turkey and Syria, in the Middle East, the devastating earthquake in the eastern half of Syria and northwestern half. The eastern half of Turkey and the northwestern half of Syria. That has killed dozens of people. Of course they do. And just overall, I see how so many of these terrible systems we have set up, just in a psychological sense or psychosociological sense, just fail just people in general. They emotionally fails people completely. Living rush around, wasted lives, just turns them into hyperbolic, paranoid zombies that run around just trying to scavenge what they can to survive. And one of the ways that these systems fail is, by contradicting themselves, at least what their dictated principles would morally say is right. Turns to the fact that when people start to go against traditionalism and set societal structures or interpersonal structuring that has been affected by external factors and their own physical factors, but less, how much oppression you will face. That, I guess, will lead me to the main points of this video. I've talked in great lengths before about the slew of ageism that I've faced for so many years, and especially since leaving the city of Toronto. The manipulation I faced from my own family. And in relation to not just ageism, but any form of oppression of any kind, racial oppression, oppression of gender expression or physiological gender, stigma towards sexuality, non-problematic sexuality as far as I'm concerned, religious degradation, cultural degradation, alienation, intellectual disregard, stigmatizing of disabilities, disorders, sexism in relation to the genders was traditionally in whatever country is expected of them. Prejudice towards the impoverished, all else. But especially, and combining all those factors, especially all those issues in relation to ageism for, well, right now, what I'm saying is not just specifically to ageism, but in terms of those other, well, those other social issues, factoring into ageism as well. In whatever form that ageism comes in for kids and teenagers. You will not know the extent of how much on the daily you're suppressed until you, with all your might, go against the systems that have been set up for you. Maybe you will, at least, well, I think, yes, obviously there people from your own research and your own experiences just functioning within whatever interpersonal or sociological systems that have been set up, you can get an understanding of it. Great understanding of it. But from what I've observed, how much people really just seem to be content with functioning, and well, maybe not content, but don't go against these systems as much as they could be. If we're being genuinely honest, as much as they probably could be pushing back against them without means of violence or major revolts. Well, as far as I can tell, for whatever issue it is, but in relation to ageism here, you will not know maybe not fully realize the extent of how deep-rooted the problem is in every facet of human life. Until you push back against it with as much force as you possibly have. It's a year since I left Toronto. Almost a year. The anniversary of my departure will be coming up in May of this year. I left the city, what was it? Probably May 26th or 27th of 2022. Reflecting back on the last nearly 9 months since I left, I can't believe half the things that I've already done. so many people in this regard, mainly adults, really, well, they really do just see children and teenagers as, naive little toys. It's the best way I can put it. Just as impressionable clay figures that they can mold into whatever they please. Or, in relation to their, if they have kids, their own children, they see them, as I've talked about in a previous video, as just commodities. Things that'll gain them social praise. Because, hey, we're getting to the age where, well, everyone else is having kids by this age, late 30s, early 40s, mid 30s. Well, better time to do it now than ever. No, I don't, if I really truly self-reflected, I don't genuinely want kids. I don't genuinely want to let them grow and experience things in life. I don't want to have them as companion. No. I don't want them to be their own person. I don't want them to critically think. No. I want them because it'll get me social praise, because having kids is just what you do. You're born, you're raised by your parents, you go to school, you just absorb everything that the school system shoves down your throat like a sponge. You go to post-secondary, depending on the schooling system of your country. You attempt to get a degree. You gain it or you don't. You then attempt to get some sort of job occupation within that, many times in that field of study. And in many cases, people don't. Or they do. And they just slave away at it. Then you get married or attempt to date, even though you may or may not have any real interest in it, or you might, but you don't actually really, well, don't know what to look for in it because you've just been spoon-fed a bunch of crap about sexuality and romance types for most of your life. Then you settle down have kids, the cycle repeats for them. You get old, you become internally depressed or dissociate, or gain another type of psychological disorder, which then can lead to you having physiological diseases or disorders, illness overall, and then you die. Either from those illnesses, psychologic or physiologic, and or you die of old age. Cardiac cells just begin to deteriorate. Or your pulmonary cells, or digestive, or any other. Really think about how disturbing that is. Not just that whole process, but especially in relation to children. It's really devastating and very unsettling knowing that you were created as just, whether your parents knew it or not, or whether they consciously realized what they were doing or not. But in essence, philosophically, in essence, ontologically, what they were doing was just creating you for their own purposes in terms of just social benefit. That is very disturbing. And many times when you start to call the adults out on this bullshit, they put up their defensive barriers because they don't want to feel like they've wasted their lives. They don't want to feel like they've made a horrible, horrible decision. They don't want to feel like they don't want to feel like they've been a terrible human being, even if they have. Because too often people in this world think that there's good people and then there's bad people. And I'm a good person, so I couldn't have done something terrible. Well, you're not. There is no such thing as good and bad people. There's no such thing as good and evil. At all. As far as I'm concerned by this world. There's more beneficial. And then there's more detrimental. And then there's all else in between. But in terms of what I said about people on average in this relation, kids and teens, not truly pushing back against these systems of oppression, these heavily flawed systems that are not functioning to everyone's benefit, or most people's. Well, yes, in relation to them too. Unfortunately, there are highly, highly intelligent kids and teenagers out there in the world, highly intelligent, that are not just carbon copies of their parents, their families, or their people within their immediate lives. They're incredible critical thinkers and are actually able to call out the problematic forces that surround them in great detail. The sad thing is, they still just function within them. At the end of the day, they'll talk with their friends at school about the problems that their abusive parents are causing them. They will psychoanalyze them and are able to pinpoint the disorders they have or what is causing the root of the issue. What is causing the issue? What's at the root of it? But at the end of the day, they'll still just go home. They'll go home, they'll go on their phone, they'll put their head in a book, they'll put their AirPods in, smoke a vape or two, or a blunt, play some video games, watch some movies, jerk off to porn, all while closed away in their rooms. They'll still just go back to the thing that was destroying them. Same with the school system. They'll call out the flawed resources and programs that are part of the educational system. They'll despise it. Some of them won't do their homework or do assignments. Good on you, actually. Any of you who do that, good on you. I encourage that. But at the end of the day, so many of them will still just go. They'll go back. They'll go back to the damn school. Doesn't really matter, even if you skip class, you still went there. You still just followed along. criticize your job, rightfully so, if the issues that being paid nothing, literally minimum wage in Canada, or well, minimum wage in Ontario right now, $15 an hour. Literally nothing. Nothing. Not a livable wage in the slightest. Get fucking real. Not a, spending it wisely, a survivable wage, but not a livable, comfortable wage. Or even really at $30 an hour. Be great, but even so, extreme inflation, because of the bullshit set value systems of capitalism, out of control prices that corporations have complete control over, barely any regulation from the government at all, in the predominantly capitalist world. What remains of fucking socialism is, well, really becoming shambles. The boss is an arrogant, histrionic, egotist who harps on you constantly and is more sociopathic, doesn't have much compassion for you, just sees you as, well, a tool to garner their, in many cases, only slightly higher paycheck compared to what the CEOs and corporate executives are making, compared to that of the branch owners. Who are exploiting the irate and ignorant boss, who is also contributing to exploiting you. It's a wonderful, wonderful system. Wonderful social system. You'll complain about it. You'll bring up the points to your coworkers. You'd be, as far as I was concerned, justified in your anger towards it. But once again, you'll still work there. You'll still just keep coming in, clocking in every hour. When the time comes when someone is being treated horribly by said boss, people will either just sit back and do nothing, whether it's them being berated or someone else. And no, just to clarify, I'm not giving it, I'm not giving like a vague example of like experiences of my own. Obviously, yes, I've gone through these types of experiences, but these aren't any specifically outlined thing I'm alluding to. But the kids and the teens will still just go. you'll still just go. So as far as I'm concerned, most people, most kids, teens, they don't follow what they seem to think is their moral codes, morality, their philosophies. They don't go against the horrible controlling forces in their lives, for the most part, many people. And this didn't become fully, well, as apparent to me as it, I guess, maybe could have ever been in the past, until I did. Now, obviously, I should have made this clear. I forgot to mention in my social intimidation video. I'm not special. Don't take this in any sort of way of me being overly egotistical. There are people, teens and adults, who have done what I've done. They've left their home cities, they've packed a bag, they've walked out, they've driven out, gone on a bus, on a train, they've gone. They've hop-shipped and moved. Or they've left their homes within their hometowns or cities and just have had to live homeless, have been jobless, and are just struggling to get by. There are. I'm nothing special in that regard. There are even homeless YouTubers as well on YouTube. There are those who are able to upload, who have devices and have channels and in Wi-Fi spots when they can find them, they upload. I'm not at all special in that regard either, by any means. But as I said at the end of my Made It to Ottawa video when I first gotten here, about nearly 5 months ago, but 4.5 months ago, I gave myself a bit of praise, saying along the lines of, I believe, I took myself at 18 years old away from a destructive and psychologically, philosophically taxing situation in Toronto. It doesn't matter whether though I did, I literally purchased a motorized bicycle, gathered what necessities I could for the week that I was sleeping on and off on the streets of Toronto. A few nights where I slept at some people's homes. And then I drove out of that city. Drove out. Then when I got to the village of Crow's Landing, after a while, motorized bike, Timmy, kept breaking down. Bought a golf cart. Used it to get around from towns and villages in between them. Her name was Trudy. Then purchased a side-by-side UTV I named Carlene and drove that in and out of the villages and towns and all the way from Crow's Landing one day to the city of Peterborough to gather necessities. That side-by-side I am, as I've said before now, trying to sell. Financial situation is at. But I took myself, it doesn't matter whether I got drives at points, which I did even though I didn't want to burden people, or walked or took myself to places. I still made the decision and took myself away from it. Away. And I'm continuing to take myself away from it. And by terrible situation, I don't just mean my problematic household with my parents. As I've stated with my existential/morality crisis, the problems of the world I saw around me in the city of Toronto. That I still see obviously here in Ottawa. That I've seen in every part of every place that I've been to so far. Contradictions of life. People just doing the same thing as each other. Just, well, not acknowledging the fact that what they're doing is in essence the same thing as their opponent, the person they despise. For the people in the world who I've seen, at the very least in some small form, acknowledge the contradictions. People who have said that they feel that what contradictions they see need to be acknowledged. Well, what good really does acknowledging the goddamn contradictions? What good does it actually do? There's no solution to them, at least as far as I can see right now, or if we don't actually bother to come up with some sort of solution, and all we do is acknowledge, what the fuck does that do? Huh? What the fuck does it do? But I did that. I'm now 19 years old. I did that. Despite literally pretty well all odds, what everybody, almost everyone, has seemed to think. I very much know that none of my extended family members believed in me. My parents didn't believe in me. There are friends of mine, ex-friends as well, who very clearly, obviously, didn't believe in me. At all. Didn't think, at the very least, that I would even be able to make it close to this now. Well, I did. I did. I obviously don't know how much farther I'll make it, but I made it this far. Am I on a road to my own death? Maybe. That's absolutely like. There's so many times, as I've mentioned at points here and there before, I could have died at so many points, not even just on this journey, when I was living with my parents, starving for a year because of chronic nausea issues, debilitating pseudo-neurological problems, which still plague me, not near as much as they did whilst I was living there, but they still are an issue at many points. Survived overdosing on caffeine, which is what caused those stomach problems. Could have died that day. The anniversary of that will be coming up. That happened in 2020, April 16th. Remember that day fondly. Changed my life forever. It's just to kids, to teens, to anyone. Like I said, doesn't matter what form of oppression you're facing. But for at least what I'm speaking to right now, ageism, to kids and teens. There is evidence that shows that you are intellectually capable of whatever you're doing. Shows that you are right in your thought process. Don't let any of them, adults or your fellow peers who have been corrupted, don't let them corrupt you. Please. Another thing I'm thankful for at this point, despite everything in relation to our morality crisis, still, as far as I can tell that I'm consciously aware of, have not let anyone corrupt me without me critically analyzing it. I haven't. I will never. As long as I have the ability to critically think, I will never stop critically thinking, analyzing everything. I will not stop. Will not. The only thing that'll stop me is if I was to be killed, if I was to gain a degenerative brain disease, a form of dementia. And have it affect my prefrontal cortex. Frontal cortex. Or if someone was to fucking lobotomize me. But until those things happen, I'm not gonna stop. And I'm not turning around and going back to Toronto. I'm not. Not until I see the rest of Canada that I'm attempting to see, and the other countries that I'm going to attempt to get to. I'm not. Unless I deem it necessary and right to do. And even if I was to go back to Toronto at any point in the future, I'm not going back to that fucking house with my parents. I'm not. My employer offered, fantastic person. My original employer in Toronto offered me the opportunity to come back if I ever needed a safe place to go or something financially stable. I thank you for that. But from here on out, as far as I'm concerned, not just for it should make it clear, not just for my travels, but the rest of my life, no more mega corporations. I'm sorry. I'm never coming back to work there. I would love to just help any of you out in what ways I could if I was ever to come back, but in terms of working, well, morally I can't. kids and teens, if you have the ability, really honestly, even if you don't have the ability, as far as I'm concerned, if you're in a horrible situation and you know it, leave. Leave the abusive situation. Leave it. For as hellish as these last 8 months have been for me, there have been admittedly moments that of things that I've experienced. I've had experiences that have been some of the best of my life and better than anything I would have gotten from staying where I was at in the city of Toronto. As far as I'm concerned, you will not know how good, in the smallest of ways, life can be, despite all of this atrociousness. Smaller moments, at the very least, you won't know how good they can feel or be until you actually attempt to leave. And you really won't face you may face suppression from your parents, from schooling systems, your job, your community, the police. From prejudice, just from very ignorant people. But until you actively, go away from it, you most likely will not know the extent of it. They may push back when you just so much as talk to them or get in a fight with them, verbally. When you start physically moving yourself away from the scenario, for the sense of either maybe because in some way they do have some amount of empathy and care for you, or just because they become normalized to your presence and are afraid of the idea of you not being there, they will try to control you and keep you physically there. They will. And I don't think many of you will see that until you actually try to leave. That they will try and physically control you. They will try and they will desperately try to make you not leave. This also relates, trying I guess make this point quick because my phone is dying, to child and teenage artists, entertainers. There are many incredibly intelligent and talented people in the entertainment world who are of my age or younger who I've loved, or when they started out, they were around my age. As far as I'm concerned, they never really had any true power over the changes they were able to make to things in relation to their work or things that they were trying to get accomplished through their art. An example I could bring up is Panic at the Disco, a band that I've greatly enjoyed. My favorite band for a long time. Well, now band for the last few years, Brendan Urie's solo act, but he just recently announced the breakup, the official breakup of the band for the fourth time. I don't have any spite against Brendan Urie. Can his ego be very inflated? Yeah, it can. Can he get very rambunctious? Yeah, he can. Did him and Spencer Smith manipulate Ryan Ross and John Walker when they were all agreeing on departing? And then they went on to make Vices and Virtues? Yeah, they did. But, they were 17 when that band started. When they were during the production of A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. Fantastic album, in my opinion. Along with Pretty Odd, but they were 17. They were signed by toxically manipulative Pete Wentz of Fall Out Boy. As far as I'm concerned, the alternative rock industry didn't have any care for what the substance of their lyrical work was. They just saw a profit. They saw how popular, well, granted, something like what Panic did was not as readily seen in the larger music industry at the time, but, well, in some form, they saw it as a potentially good business opportunity, and they just took it and ran with it. Took them and ran with it. As far as I'm concerned, the same thing happened to Billie Eilish. I enjoy a lot of her music still. I don't like her as a person, as far as I'm concerned. I feel she was manipulated. Well. One second. Had to move over to a bench in the park. Hopefully that holds for the time being. What the abuse that sexual abuse that Billie suffered is terrible. Or it's not an excuse for her attitudes, culture vulture attitudes towards things such as degradation of hip hop, even though she's very much a hip hop artist, is heavily influenced by hip hop. And or deal with whatever what was it? There was some art commission thing, and where she, was involved with a company that was not fairly paying artists that were commissioned for a contest that she was a part of. And that was just the last straw for me with that, but anyway, I feel that she was manipulated as well. I also feel that Finneas has been manipulated too. He's also a fantastic musician, but and I, as of right now, don't have any major problems with Finneas, but I do believe he is being exploited by the mainstream music industry of Hollywood. Same thing goes as well for many YouTubers I enjoy. I can definitely say that I feel, and though I greatly enjoy their content, many takes they've had on things, mentioned them here and there before on this channel at points. YouTubers like PewDiePie, Felix Schauberg, Markiplier, Mark Fishback, Jacksepticeye, Sean McLaughlin, or there's some more for this example. IHE, I Hate Everything. Well, somewhat he can count for this, but Jaden Animations, The Odd Ones Out, and Marichu, her boyfriend Didus, Moist Critical, or Penguin Z0, larger YouTubers in this regard. As far as I'm concerned, well, many of them started at younger ages. So the animators I mentioned more so late teens, but and the other ones more so could be mid-teenhood. But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, they have been manipulated by YouTube for many years. None of them, and they know it. They all know it. They put effort into what they've done, as far as I'm concerned. But it's not this whole just many people, especially my generation. Well, large portion may think that they just made good content and worked their way up through the YouTube algorithm system and got their pay for it. They just tried hard to make really great content, and YouTube just enjoyed what they were pushing out, and so they took partnerships with them and then added on higher amounts of payment per views. No. What happened was YouTube saw enthusiastic teenagers who enjoyed what they were doing, whether it was gaming, animation, media reviews, sketch comedy, for the larger sketch comedy YouTubers who started maybe when they were young adults. Like Bo Burnham is another one. Well, they saw and they didn't see like the passion in their eyes. All they saw was just dollar signs. They saw a profit. They saw a profit to make off of them, of course. I don't know if Susan Wojcicki, the current CEO of YouTube, was CEO at the time of their rise to celebrity recognition within the YouTube community. But even now, Susan Wojcicki doesn't give two shits about YouTubers. Absolutely not. She doesn't care one bit. As far as I'm concerned, she's a manipulative sociopath, a corporate sociopath who absolutely cares about profit gain. It's very clear with the new guidelines and policies that are being implemented on YouTube. Remember when Moist Critical actually did a video, the stupid system of calling out the very stupid policy of the whole you can't swear, like, or potentially could get demonetized for curse words or even technically, I guess, potentially vulgar imagery or graphic imagery in the first, what was it, 10 seconds, 18 seconds of the video or something. And Moist Critical was talking about how YouTube is notorious about not communicating its policies and new implementations of policies to its content creators. Well, at all. They're notorious for it. I agree with him, but hate to break, at least in my opinion, some form to Charlie. I think you need to be more precise on your wording there. It's not that they're notoriously just, very bad and very unorganized with their communication skills. No, they're purposefully unorganized. They're purposefully uninformative. They're purposely. They do it on purpose to keep us in the dark. Especially for YouTubers who are larger, who aren't as favorable now as they were, say, 10 years ago. Are falling out of popularity and would like to just push off to the side for more favorable content, especially, I guess, maybe if it's more family-friendly oriented content. That they're trying to push. It's done so that in terms of the demonetization in this regard, as far as I'm concerned, that's so when you slip up, unknowing YouTuber who's trying to make a living off doing this, slips up, they can be like, yep, get it demonetized. Now, do it. So that the algorithm, so that the monetization system can, be cut from it. It's very clear. She doesn't care one bit. At all. Especially in terms of other, YouTubers, larger ones. YouTube has paid for them at points or helped them in some way financially, going on different tours, panel running for cons, going on talk shows. Does anyone remember when fucking Markiplier, Felix, Jack, Sean, had gone on talk shows in the past, far past? Like the larger talk shows, not so much more like just podcasts or indie ones. Yeah. It's, as far as I'm concerned, larger YouTubers who started off during their teenhood, exploited, used. By this point, they're being tossed to the side. They're getting too old, they're falling out of favor, they're too controversial. So, whether the controversy is justified or not, it's just too much for YouTube to handle. At least now. Hell, even if it was back then, they probably just would have tossed them to the side anyway. And most corporations, the second someone's public image is no longer within their favor, or just favorable, and, they don't want to have any sort of affiliation to it in a histrionic sense because they care about their public reputation, they sever the ties as much as they possibly can. Ah, silly me. Another thing I should have mentioned at the beginning of this video. Mentioned in the last one how I had good news about another job prospect. Said I had gained another job after the second one that I had here in Ottawa at the Italian-Canadian themed restaurant, but then unfortunately, well, they had to cut me, basically fire me, but they just said, well, if we need anything, we'll call you, but had to let me go because of issues relating to them having already employed a dishwasher for them, which I was filling in the position of. And I said that an Indian-themed restaurant on the same road had called me and said that I could come in, try out on Friday of that week, but then ended up being what would have been this Friday, tomorrow. Fortunately, I called to confirm today, and well, they found someone else. So that's unfortunate. I don't know the owner as a person. Not entirely fond of the decision that they made. I wish they would have called me beforehand, just to tell me that they found someone. Because they specifically told me to call them to confirm. Oh well. So much for that. But on that same road as those two restaurants, I applied to a sex toy shop. And apparently it's actually the only one, I think, in the Orleans district. Small business. And I already dropped my resume there about a week and a half ago. And called them today, said, hey, I am, and I use, this is in some way manipulative of me, but by this point, I didn't know what else to do. I just basically said to them, hey, I am in desperate need of a job, really desperate need of a job right now. So I would really like to speak to the manager or the owner, whoever, at some point, see about obtaining a job. And they said, well, we can take your phone number, and the owner's in this weekend, so I'll pass it along and tell them, like, to give you a call. And whoever was keeping care, supervising the store at that time, said, I'm assuming that you're available all the time at this, well, from the sound of it. And I said, yep, I am. Then I also just today dropped my resume at a pizza restaurant that's off to the side, well, within the same building as a gas station in Western Orleans. So let's hope there's something in that. One of the two. Because I've been conserving my funds as much as I possibly can. But, really would like to get them up at least a little bit more than what they are at right now before I leave Ottawa. Because now I have a departure date. April 25th is when I will be leaving the city. And then heading up through into Quebec, going through Gatineau, and through the countryside to some small towns, small cities, and making my way to the city of Laval, then into Montreal, then into the neighboring city of Montreal on the west side, Longueuil, then throughout into the countryside again, and upwards to the neighboring city to Quebec City, Lévis, and then to Quebec City, where I will be hunkering down for another winter, ideally. As for Montreal and Laval, I'm gonna, once I get there, explore Laval, then spend maybe like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, if I can, depending on where my finances are at, in Montreal, just on the goddamn streets, or whatever I can find. If I have to stay at a motel for a night or two, maybe. If I can actually, this time, I'm like in Peterborough. Just, yeah, exploring it. As of right now, on my channel, I've only made one video of exploring the southern half of Gatineau. The Hall District. I'm just gonna explore what I can, the rest of what I can, when I get going. I'm not gonna have time to go all the way down there at this point. Some point in March, as my plans right now, I am going to be going to the Canada District, the western end of Ottawa, and walking all the way back through the Nepean District into Sierreville, back here to Orleans, and just exploring that, because god damn it, I'm on these travels to actually explore things, see parts of this world, so I'm gonna. And if I have a job by then, I'm gonna tell them, hey, I need 3 days off. I'm just gonna need 3 days off at the end of the month. Taxes are coming up. Income tax. First time doing it solo. Well, solo. I'm gonna have somebody I know here in Ottawa help me with them. Hopefully it all goes well. And for the future of that, well, I'll figure that out. One day I run out of finances, run out of money, and I'm not able to pay taxes. Well, then I guess I'm committing tax evasion in the future. I don't give a shit. Most of that money is lobbied or goes directly into politicians' pockets, so, and CEOs' pockets, right back to them. It's not redistributed. I'm crunching away at those goddamn theories that I'm writing and those scientific implementations. Got one done so far. Now I gotta just try and focus on the rest when I can, when I'm not recording videos or working, or if I have time to at work, I will crunch away at them. So yeah. To all kids, teens, anyone else, if you notice the suppression happening to you, please do something to fight against it other than just talk about it. Please, do. I don't know if there's any, major benefit that can come out of it. At least something can come out of it. Something even, I think, slightly better than the situation you're in. Please do. For those, few, even so much as few seconds of real, true, better ways of life and freedom, do it. Really look at whether you have a choice to do something or not. And be understanding. As in many ways, at the end of the day, you're just doing the same thing as someone else. But I'll talk more about that at a different point. In terms of my theories in relation to that. Leave Ottawa, April 25th. I've decided whether or not I sell Carlene, my side by side. I am walking out of the city. Someone here is just going to keep it. I have it up for sale on Kijiji. And whoever purchases it, is just going to have to e-transfer me the money. Or someone else is going to have to do so. I'm going to start signing out my videos with something. Because why not? Just to show my true feelings of things, I guess. Even though more than I already have. Good luck with whatever you're doing. Hope you're well. If I offended anybody with this video or anything I said in it, I'm sorry. If it was unintentional, well, then obviously it wasn't my intent. I hope you gained something from this. Spring is coming. Yes. Another thing that just sprung to my mind that I wanted to say. In relation to Too Much Talking Twink 2, the second video. I really do correct a lot of things I've been making a lot of changes to my opinions on that one and from the first Too Much Talking Twink I made. In relation to what I said about the author, H.P. Lovecraft, who I, in terms of my video games, have been doing adaptations of. What I said at the end there about how his racism, racial prejudice, was just pointless spitting in most of his books and not trying to send any sort of sociological, be some sort of sociological message for the issue of racism. That was completely wrong as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it is a matter of sociological prejudice. I don't know why I said that. Well, anyway. And as well as what I said at the end of that video about how people can pretty well be offended by anything nowadays. What a load of self-righteous bullshit of me to say. Yeah, that's, oh, yeah, I don't have any other words for it. It's just self-righteous. Overly self-righteous. And as far as I'm concerned, maybe I'll talk about this at a different point. In terms of Too Much Talking Twink 1, that video, I don't disagree with the overall point I was trying to get across with what I was talking about. But in terms of my whole stance on liberalism and conservatism being two separate things, they're actually not. Not just in relation to how the Canadian political system thinks of it, but ideologically, you can be a liberal for liberalism and conservative. Most people in the world, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of traditionalism, are. So yeah, I retract that statement entirely. Yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.